This is John Selleck with Harbor Strategic Public Relations in Lansing. We're here today to guide you through this webinar on this Cyber Monday with 4 experts in illicit trade, illegal trade, counterfeit products, things to be watching out for when consumers are shopping during this holiday season. We know a lot of consumers are shopping online more and more, and we know that criminal activity has moved that direction. They go where the customers are, just like anyone else. And we know a lot of customers don't necessarily realize that. So if they see a deal that's maybe too good to be true, they need to be aware. What are the red flags they should be watching for? Not only because the product they receive may be detrimental to their family or the folks that are going to receive the gifts, but they may inadvertently be helping criminal networks and other bad actors along the way. 4 experts we're going to have here today include Hernan Albamonte. He's the main spokesperson for the sponsor of the webinar today, United to Safeguard America Against Illegal Trade. We call it USAIT. He's also the head of illicit trade prevention at Philip Morris International. That coalition contains a number of international and national companies like Levi Strauss, Merck, Procter & Gamble, and Tommy Hilfiger, but it also includes a lot of organizations here in Michigan, like the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the Michigan Retailers Association, and the Police Officers Association of Michigan. Next up, we'll hear from Professor Jay Kennedy. He's with Michigan State University at the Center for Anti-Counterfeiting and Product Protection. After that, we'll hear from Christopher Sullins. He's an agent with the Global Trade Task Force at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in Detroit, Michigan, which is one of the biggest, most busy international trade border crossings that we have in the United States. And then we'll hear from Michael LaFave. He's with a think tank located in Midland, Michigan, known as the Mackinac Center. He is an expert not only on the state budget, but things that affect it. And that includes the illegal trade and smuggling of tobacco products that has a great direct impact, not only on consumers and what they're buying, but on our state government and the amount of revenues that they receive to take care of things like public services. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker from USAIT, Hernan Albamonte.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Hernan Albamonte, and I'm the Director of Illicit Trade Prevention for Philip Morris International. And I am in charge of deploying strategies for the company to fight against illicit trade in tobacco products. I guess that is a fancy way of saying that I'm being paid to chase bad guys. And I have to recognize I love my job because I get to contribute in protecting this amazing country. I'm delighted to be here with all of you today to discuss about the nefarious consequences of illicit trade that go well beyond the impact to the consumer, the impact to the private company or the government. It affects us all as a society. Now, it's impossible to avoid the obvious, even when discussing about this issue. And the pandemic has been very tough on all of us at an individual level, on our institutions, on our society. But for criminals, actually, the pandemic has been a golden opportunity. Tobacco products have been always very attractive to criminals. More than 1 out of 5 cigarettes purchased in this country are sold on the black market. And that cost the American taxpayer approximately $6.9 billion every year. That means that every single state is losing an incredible amount of money for taxes not collected, and that money is going to the hands of criminal organizations. Now, the popularity of illicit tobacco is mainly driven by the fact that it's a low risk and a high reward product for criminals. A single cargo container of, or containing actually counterfeit cigarette can cost you in China approximately $100,000. But you can get roughly $2.3 million in sales. And that means that criminal networks could have 22 out of 23 containers seized by law enforcement, and they will still make a profit. And unfortunately, we are not catching 22 out of 23. Now, these illegal trade networks are often used to fund even worse crimes, including human trafficking, illicit trafficking of weapons, illegal drugs, wildlife trafficking. But the black market is not just limited to dark allies. It's increasingly online. And the tremendous growth of e-commerce has created new marketplaces for criminals And since the beginning of last year, for example, there has been a 40% jump in online counterfeit goods alone. And organized retail theft also plays a huge role in all of this. I'm sure that last month you have seen, or a couple of months ago actually, you have seen in California that law enforcement broke up a major retail theft operation that was collecting $8 million in stolen merchandise. And those were not high-end electronics. It was mostly small items and toiletries that were shoplifted from CVS and Walgreens. And these stolen items then were collected in a warehouse and eventually sold online through Amazon or eBay's to unsuspecting customers. We are also seeing that product shortages during the pandemic have helped to fuel the demand for medical product, everything from PPEs to vaccine themselves. Last January, I was meeting with the Department of Homeland Security, and they were telling me about a case of on the dark web that included an organization that was buying empty vials of COVID vaccine. And then those vials, I mean, you know what it's likely to be happen, right? So who is buying those empty vials and what are they doing with them? And probably they were taking advantage of desperate people, desperate seniors that wanted to have the vaccine as soon as possible. And to be honest, that is pretty scary and it's as well anger inducing. All told, I believe that, or we believe actually, that illicit economies or the combination of all this illegal trade is around $2.2 trillion a year industry. And that is certainly a lot of money. And the bad news is that this problem is about to get much worse. Unfortunately, we are also seeing how the pandemic has created significant supply chain breakdowns. Right now, we see several ports in the United States that have more than 60 cargo ships waiting to dock, with some ports as well having more than 500,000 containers of products that are just sitting there backlogged. Now, I'm not smart enough to tell you what are all the causes for these breakdowns, but what I can tell you is that we will see an explosion of illicit trade and online scams in the next months. And think about the following: when little Johnny asks for the newest Xbox for Christmas and the stores don't have them, desperate parents will flood the internet and criminals will be waiting there, happy to take their money. So we have to get our arms around this problem, and this is going to require bringing people together. And this is what we are trying to do at PMI. Within our company, we have worked to create this new coalition, which is United to Safeguard America from Illegal Trade, and also known as USAIT. And this coalition brings together private and public sectors, law enforcement agencies, and other groups to fight back against these well-funded and well-organized criminal networks. We're employing data and intelligence to better understand the problem. And we're also holding training sessions for law enforcement agencies and police, where we are empowering them with the instruments, tools, and knowledge to be able to fight back against this illicit trade. So we are trying to break down the barriers in our communities and provide education on this issue. And that extends as well to the public. That's why we are also combining all these efforts with law enforcement agencies with a public awareness campaign about the illicit trade in many different states, actually in 12 different states. And you can learn more about what we are doing from this coalition at usait.org. Now, the campaign also includes a significant portion of paid media. And as I mentioned before, the electronic marketplace has posed a real problem on this issue. So we are using digital advertising to help educate people on the impact of illicit trade and how this affects directly their communities. We are also getting or working to get media coverage. As I know, there are many media people joining us, so we're happy to have them here, because the idea is to be able to express and to share this message all across the country and be able to get to every single person for them to be aware, particularly during this shopping or holiday season, about the risk associated and how to identify products that might be illegal. And obviously, as you can imagine, any modern campaign today has to have a big component of social media. So we're engaging with people and gaining thousands of followers on the most popular social media platforms. As said earlier, at Philip Morris International, we want to be solution providers, and that applies also to the fight against illicit trade and criminal organizations. We have decades of experience fighting these networks and knowing how they operate, and we want to be helpful not only to the law enforcement communities, but also the communities at large. I have worked on this issue for several years, actually 14 years. I've been working in different countries, including Central America and Mexico, where there is a straight correlation with criminal networks. And I can tell you that there is no simple solution to this issue. However, I'm confident that if we all get together, we certainly can crack down this important issue. So let me close by saying thank you to everyone that has joined us today. Thank you also to all the law enforcement people that have joined us today, because they are helping us to keep our community safe. And we are here to contribute to that objective. And I'm happy to answer any particular questions you may have at a later stage during this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hernan. We are going to definitely open things up for Q&A a little bit later in the seminar, but next we are going to go to Jay Kennedy. He's a professor at Michigan State University's Center for Anti-Counterfeiting and Product Protection. Jay, go ahead.
Thanks, John, and thanks to the USAIT group for inviting me. My name is Jay Kennedy. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Criminal Justice at Michigan State University, an assistant director of research at the Center for Anti-Counterfeiting and Product Protection, also known as the ACAP Center. Well, the ACAP Center is a key feature of MSU. We've been around for about 13 years. We are, as far as we know, the only academic center in the world that does what we do. And what we do is we serve as a hub for the brand protection practice and the study of brand protection across the globe. We have a threefold mission that focuses on research, education, and outreach. And so we research the problem of brand protection and counterfeiting from a number of different aspects. And then we turn that research into practical products that can be used by law enforcement, brand owners, service providers, and other partners that we have in the field. Additionally, we have a very robust student education program, an internship program whereby we are training the next generation, the next future workforce in the brand protection space. Most importantly, we really work to engage with our partners in law enforcement, brand owners, and our service provider partners to ensure that we are developing solutions that can help to meet their needs and also address the future challenges that will face this world. One of the key issues that we see with counterfeiting, as with all forms of illicit trade, is that it is a continually evolving issue. Counterfeiters, bad actors, criminals, criminal organizations, criminal networks, they respond not only to the activities of law enforcement, but also brands and consumers as a way to try and keep the money flowing to their operations. And so as we innovate new responses to their criminal activities, they in turn will innovate responses to that. And so it forces us to continue on with this mission and keep on our toes. As Hernan mentioned, this is a challenge that has multiple different facets to it. And it is not an easily solvable challenge, but it's one that we have applied the full resources of Michigan State University and our center towards addressing. We have partners across many aspects of the university, from engineering to supply chain management, media and advertising, and forensics as well, to try and address this problem and bring solutions to our partners. One of the important lessons that we try and bring to the community, to society, to consumers at this time of the year is the fact that counterfeiters don't take time off for holidays. They don't take breaks when it comes down to the holiday season. As a matter of fact, this is one of their most lucrative times of the year. And that's because we are all in this season of giving, what has become ultimately an opportunity to create joy, particularly coming out of a pandemic when there's been so much grief, the opportunity to get back with our family and friends. Counterfeiters and other bad actors see this as a way to take advantage of those who are vulnerable and to steal money from people and to advance their criminal missions. And so the message that we try and continue to push forward is that consumers need to be vigilant as they're going out there and shopping for these products. Now, this message was in one way very unique when, several years ago, e-commerce was a burgeoning field, but the brick and mortar, the physical retail store still held sway. After the pandemic and given the rise of e-commerce over the past couple of years, we obviously have seen shifts in these trends, right? More people going online to buy, the prominence of e-commerce platforms, the prominence of standalone websites offering products to consumers is a substantial challenge that we need to address. Not only because it is very difficult to vet the individuals who are online, but it's very difficult for consumers to make informed choices when they're online. When you go to a store and look at a product, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can get a sense of the quality, let alone for the fact that you can assess quality by virtue of the places from where you shop. Much different buying something from a legitimate retail store such as Macy's or JCPenney's, as opposed to someone who's selling something out of a stall in an alley or on a street corner. When you're online, really the only things that we have to verify the potential legitimacy of an item are the site from which we are buying, the pictures that we see, and the descriptions of those products. And two of those things counterfeiters have gotten really, really good at manipulating. And that is the pictures and the descriptions of those products. They will take legitimate images from the legitimate manufacturers and use them in their advertisements, and they'll sell them on legitimate e-commerce platforms. And this has again created confusion for consumers, but it also creates harm, mainly because most of the products that we're looking at now, or most of the products that we focus on in this season, tend to be things that go to our loved ones and our families, like toys. Toys have been a major focus of counterfeiters for a very long time. There are a number of examples of counterfeit toys causing harm to people, particularly with one example given, toys that have magnets in them. And we can look to a Michigan-based example for this, a company called Magforms, which is out of the Plymouth Canton area, manufactures plastic toys that have magnets in them that come together. They're kind of like building blocks. They're wonderful toys if you've not had exposure to them, but they are a prime target for counterfeiters because they are a great product. But the counterfeit products aren't made with the same quality plastics that the legitimate products are made of, and they tend to break. And what happens when plastic tends to break? The magnets will fall out of them and kids can ingest them. And unfortunately, there are real cases where people have been harmed by counterfeit magformers breaking and people ingesting those magnets. This is something that no one ever wants to see, a child being harmed by a toy that they get for Christmas. But the reality is that counterfeiters don't care. The criminal networks that are involved in this, all they see is the profits. And so they look for ways to get these products into consumers' hands. Now, Magformers has done a great job of putting information out there, being very forward thinking and telling consumers about the risks for counterfeit products. And if you go to their website, you can see a lot of examples of this. They will give you examples that you can use not only for buying their products, but to be careful when buying other products. So for example, be very clear to look at the labels that are advertised on the products. And what you're looking for are spelling and grammatical errors. Many of these products originate from foreign countries where English is not the native language. And the labels that are put out there do not have proper spelling and grammar on them. You're going to be looking for other cues such as very blurry pictures or pictures of the wrong products in advertisements. You're going to be looking for phone numbers or websites that lead to non-authentic places. And so if there's a company out there you're looking to buy a product from, go to the legitimate website, search it out, find it. And if you see a discrepancy between the information that's on the legitimate website and that which is being offered to you on an e-commerce platform or some other website, then you probably shouldn't buy from that other website. The safest way to protect yourself is to buy directly from the manufacturers. Go to their websites. If their websites direct you to another website or to a specific e-commerce platform or a channel or an e-commerce platform, those are safe places to buy from. Avoid the sites that do not fall into that criteria, because it will definitely put you in harm. Now, it may not be something that creates a physical harm, but at least it'll be a financial harm because you then become a victim of these counterfeiting schemes. Lastly, I'd like to say that what's really important in this is having strong intellectual property rights protections and strong collaborations across partners in this space. And so it's great that we've got on this call people like the USAIT partners. We've got Department of Homeland Security here. We've got think tanks involved, people who are really interested in solving this problem, because this is not just a counterfeiting problem. This is a general illicit trade problem. Counterfeits are pulled onto by illicit actors because, as Hernan mentioned, it is a low risk, high reward activity. It is just another tool that many illicit organizations use, just like human smuggling and cigarette trafficking and arms trafficking, a way for them to get money. And because many of these schemes go undetected or they go unprosecuted, then the illicit actors have the ability to gain a lot of money and victimize individuals. It also becomes a game of whack-a-mole, whereby they can create a number of standalone websites or advertisements on third-party platforms such as Amazon and eBay and Wish, where their products can be sold. And if they get taken down by one of those platforms, it's very easy to start up another profile or another website. And so for them, it's a numbers game. For us, it's a health and safety game. And so I would encourage you to check out sites like Magformers, to check out sites like the Department of Homeland Security's National Intellectual Property Rights Coordination Center, to look for information from legitimate associations like the Toy Association. They will all be giving you good signs and good cues on how to avoid scams in this holiday season. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to taking questions later on.
Thank you very much, Professor. Next up, we're going to hear from Christopher Sullins. He's an agent at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Global Trade Task Force based in Detroit. Christopher, go ahead.
Greetings, and thank you so much, everybody, for the invitation. Thank you to USAIT, and thank you for everybody that's on here. While I pull this up, hopefully you guys will be able to see it. Let me know if the screen does not come up. Screen sharing should be enabled here. Is the screen showing per chance, guys? Mr. Sallet, can you see the screen?
You know, I can't, and right now I'm trying the option one more time to let all panelists share, but I'm not seeing it come up right now. Shoot, I apologize for that, Christopher. Right now, I cannot get that to come up.
Oh, okay. I can do it. I can do it without the presentation, but it won't be as fun or as exciting, guys. But I'll try to do as best as I can and walk through it the way it did. I was hoping we could have some visuals and some other things, but if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So I just wanted to go through. First of all, my name is Christopher Sullins. Thank you so much again for being here. I am a group supervisor at Homeland Security Investigations in Detroit. What we do with Homeland Security Investigations is we're the investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. So there's quite a few entities that are under Homeland Security, from Customs and Border Protection to FEMA, even to the Coast Guard. They're all under Homeland Security investigation. I guess you could look at us like the detectives. So what we do is we do the criminal investigative work. With HSI, we're very blessed. We actually look at more violations of federal law than any other federal agency does. And one of the great things is that we really focus on intellectual property theft and trade fraud. So that's an absolutely huge thing. That's why we're here today talking about that as well. Again, I apologize that the PowerPoint isn't coming up on the end here. I really wanted to give you guys visuals, but the first thing I wanted to talk about is this time of year, we always have an issue with extension cords. So if you go on UL or Underwriter Laboratories, if you go on their website right now, you can see quite a few examples that they have listed of ones to be careful of, to look out for. And I had a nice picture here of one in California recently where it was $378,000 in damage to a home from an extension cord that they bought that was counterfeit. So it was a counterfeit extension cord that led to $378,000 damage to a family's home. They had to move out of the home, obviously. This is something that we just need to really be careful of. Besides extension cords, there's always around this time of year gifts and things of that nature that we need to be careful of counterfeits as well. Another good example I have a picture of, sorry that you can't see it, is a counterfeit iPhone charger. I just bought an iPhone charger for my phone. I wanted to make sure that it was a real one, but there was a news story recently about another home that had a fire and burned down, and it was found that it was from a counterfeit iPhone charger. So as Professor Kennedy noticed, the best thing to do is try to find ones that are absolutely legitimate, that are absolutely not counterfeit. The manufacturer sites, like he mentioned, are oftentimes the best place to get them. And I totally understand. Sometimes we might want to save money, but in the end, we have to remember our safety might be very much more worth it. Another example I wanted to lift was other electronics. So if we're buying gifts for our family members, maybe we're going to get a laptop or a laptop battery. There was actually a viral video, I don't know how many people have seen it, of a teenager's laptop who actually burst into flames. And they actually had it caught on camera because they were filming something that they were doing in the living room, and you can see the laptop explode. What it was is it was actually a battery that was counterfeit. Dell got the battery, they looked at it, they said it was not an authentic Dell battery. They have intellectual property, obviously, that helps ensure the safety of theirs. This counterfeit one did not, but this is one that actually caused harm to the home again and could have been very, very dangerous because it was a counterfeit battery for a laptop. As far as toys and stuffed animals, obviously, this is the best time of the year and the most busiest time of year to buy toys, stuffed animals, and other things that we're going to give as gifts to our children and to other family members. There's many articles you can find out there about toys that may contain lead. Here in the Detroit area, we have seized quite a lot of toys that contain lead to dangerous levels. Homeland Security Investigation has worked with CBP, and we've been involved in these investigations and trying to keep these off of the market. These are obviously dangerous for children. We don't want anyone to have toys that have a high content of lead in them. Another investigation that I looked into in the past, and again, I keep saying it, but I'm sorry again that you guys don't have the visuals for all this, but another one is if we're giving gifts maybe to a loved one, is perfumes and colognes. This isn't something that many people think about that can be counterfeited, but they are quite frequently. I had an investigation I worked where I was looking at a certain cologne. It sold for approximately $300 a bottle, and I went and seized tens of thousands of dollars of it where it was counterfeit. The problem with these counterfeit colognes and perfumes is often there's chemicals in there that might not be good for the human body, or there could be even just very, very bad things. There was some lab tests that showed some negative things, even such as urine and stuff like that, that could be in trace amounts in these. And typically these are things that somebody's going to spray on their skin. So we want to make sure, even with the colognes and perfumes, that we avoid counterfeits. Another gift that was quite popular recently, and it seems to be making a trend back, is the color contact lenses. A lot of people seem to like these. We've been seizing quite a lot of these that are counterfeit as well. The problem with these is that these are technically medical devices. These should be made and made for you, and you should be doing these with a doctor, or if you're going to get them from somebody, to make sure that it's an optician or somebody who knows these, that makes sure that the curvature of the lens and all that is appropriate for you, where it's not going to cause long-term damage down the road to your sight. That would definitely be bad. That's not something that we want to do. Another thing that we've been very busy with here in Detroit with Homeland Security Investigations is looking into the counterfeit COVID-19 related things. We have had quite a few seizures of counterfeit COVID-19 cards. We've had individuals that were selling these pretty blatantly, even on social media, and they would have ads, for example, stating, hey, your local college is going to require a vaccination card to enroll. Call me to get one. And they would be selling these counterfeit COVID-19 vaccination cards on the internet. That is not something that you want to do. It's also something you want to be careful of, not only for the health and safety of you, but also your family members, your loved ones. Along that line, with the COVID-19 related things, we also here at HSI Detroit, we just see 622,000 counterfeit COVID-19, I guess you'd say the N95 respirator masks to protect our frontline hospital workers. There was a large hospital system in Michigan that, unbeknownst to them, had ordered the N95 masks, and they were sent counterfeit ones. It was over 600,000, like I said, altogether. There's been millions of these seized by HSI around the country. So we want to be careful even of the counterfeit things in the other health and safety and personal protective equipment things, such as the masks and gloves and things that we'll use to protect ourselves, or our frontline workers will use to protect themselves. Other than that, I'll be here for the Q&A session. I'm more than happy to provide my email, my cell phone number to any of you guys that you need. And I, again, thank you for your time and your attention. And I apologize again that somehow that this is not loading.
Me too. Sorry about that, Christopher. You did a fabulous job with a lot of great details. We really appreciate it. We've got one more speaker before we get to Q&A. That's Michael LaFave from the Mackinac Center in Midland. He's going to talk briefly about the effects of the illegal trade and smuggling on tobacco before we go to Q&A.
Thank you. Again, my name is Michael LaFave. I'm Senior Director of Fiscal Policy for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, where I've worked for the last 26 years. I've had a great deal of time invested in the illicit tobacco market here in Michigan and elsewhere. This is not something that I went out of my way to find. It's a subject that found me, and I want to share some material with you that I and a colleague have created with a statistical model that was designed to measure the degree to which cigarettes are smuggled in the United States. Tax evasion and avoidance is as old as taxation itself. People are not sheep just lining up to be sheared of their wool happily. And they'll change their behavior based on incentives that are presented to them. And that includes imposing excise taxes on cigarettes. Well, here in the United States, we have many taxing jurisdictions. And it is the different tax rates imposed on cigarettes across these taxing jurisdictions that provide individuals and organized crime units to save or make a buck by trying to capture what we call the tax-induced price differential of cigarettes. It's an arbitrage transaction. So an individual in Southwest Michigan, for instance, could cross the border into Indiana and be lured down there perhaps by an advertisement on the Michigan side of the border that says no Michigan tax. Of course, Indiana has their own cigarette excise tax, but it's much smaller than Michigan's is. Currently, the Gulf is $1 per pack, which is enough to induce a lot of Michigan citizens to run down and pick up less expensive cigarettes. Now, organized groups engage in what we call commercial smuggling, where they will haul van loads or truckloads up from as far as Kentucky or North Carolina or Virginia over to Michigan in the hope of distributing it for profit on a wider basis. So it's the incentives that they're faced with that lead them to these transactions. Well, we created a statistical model that I'd like to briefly describe for you to try to measure the degree to which this occurs. It's an elegant model that has us taking federal data on smoking rates by state and actual legal paid sales of cigarettes by state. By looking at the federal data, we can calculate how many packs of cigarettes should be getting smoked in a state based on their smoking rates. And then we compare it to legal paid sales, and the gulf between those two is our total smuggling rate. Well, we started doing this model in 2008, and we update it every year now. And through 2019, we estimate that almost 20% of all the cigarettes smoked in Michigan during 2019 were of an illicit variety. You can have tax evasion and avoidance, but in Michigan, it's all evasion. If you bring one cigarette over the border, it's illegal. Other states are more tolerant. So we lumped this together, call it smuggling, and Michigan's tax smuggling rate is about 20%. That ranks us about 14th in the nation in terms of inbound smuggled smokes. We're not as bad as New York, where more than 50% of the market is illegal. But we do lose a small fortune to the smuggling trade. We estimate that in 2019, absent smuggling, the Michigan Treasury would have about $200 million more at its disposal if all cigarettes were consumed after having their taxes paid on them. California is the #1 loss state. They lose about $1.5 billion a year to the tobacco smuggling trade in terms of revenue that is absent smuggling. New York is #2. We are in Michigan, we're 6th overall in terms of revenue lost. Now there's an opposite part of this coin. There are states in the country that export a lot of tobacco due to smuggling. So in New Hampshire, for instance, the live free or die state, for every 100 cigarettes consumed there, an additional 71 are smuggled out to Canada or states like Massachusetts, which has it's a neighbor and it has a relatively high tax rate and a prohibition on menthol smokes. So New Hampshire is seeing a lot of business just due to its neighbors. Our neighboring state of Indiana also sees a lot of traffic and is a net winner in terms of tax revenue due to smuggling. We estimate more than $50 million of revenue accrues to the Indiana Treasury as a direct result of illicit smokes or smokes being bought there legally by people from Michigan or Illinois and being taken out to be consumed at some other point. All of this smuggling, by the way, has greater consequences. I mean, there's lots of unintended consequences associated with high excise taxes, but it's not just in the smuggling arena. There is currently, before being decided in Congress, some legislation that might raise the federal excise tax $1 a pack. That has been sort of removed from negotiations in the overall bill that it was in, but it could end up back in there. And if it goes up, expect international trafficking to go back up. And that has significant consequences. Even at $1 per pack with the federal excise tax, we have international smuggling problems. There was a bust, I think it was just last year, involving one Michigan, a university student from the state of Michigan, who had 21 PO boxes across the state, mostly in Southeast Michigan, I think up to Lansing. And just one of those, he had more than 70 shipments come in of illicit tobacco product in a 10-month period. One person shipping in cigarettes from their particular source. And there are lots of sources to worry about. I have found international websites that will sell you cigarettes, and they brag on their website, we are not allowed by the laws of our country to cooperate with Treasury officials in yours, with taxing authorities in yours. So it's a significant problem. This next photo on the left here shows one of the boxes, but after it was resealed by the state police as part of their investigation. And the one on the right involves the smuggler's girlfriend, who showed up just as he was being busted. She talked to the police, and she wasn't held accountable for anything, but ironically, she was also a university student and studying, to my surprise, supply chain management, which I thought had a little irony involved in that particular case. So there's other problems. You know, they're not just shipping legitimate cigarettes and other tobacco products from overseas. You see counterfeit products. Now, this is an older example, but which one of these products is the counterfeit box? A lot of people have trouble figuring out which one. It's actually the one on the left, and the one on the right is legitimate. And very often, companies and the government don't know that there's these products coming in, these counterfeit products coming in, until customers will call and complain about the taste of their smoke, because the smoke often is adulterated in kind of the bathtub gin of the modern era, where it has components that are not strictly regulated high quality tobacco. I expect to see this problem increase a lot more if the federal government raises its excise tax. Back in the past, Michigan had a connection to an unfortunate event where a cell was running cigarettes illegally from North Carolina up to Michigan and distributing them, and using a portion of their profits to fund an organization overseas that was a recognized terrorist group by the State Department. And fortunately, these men were caught, and they're doing several decades now. There've been other examples, and in fact, the United States Congress even got into it and researched it along with Homeland Security to make sure that they could set up a system that tried to thwart that type of result from high excise taxes. This next photo actually shows some tax stamps, and I bring this up because in the past, it was much easier to counterfeit the tax stamps themselves that evidenced that taxes have been properly paid. It's a little harder now with digital stamping, but the sophistication behind these tax stamps were so good that they could often only determine that they were fake by testing the glue that was used to adhere it to the cellophane on the outside of the box. So the criminal mind is very talented, and through high excise taxes, unfortunately, many cigarettes are becoming little gold bars for the criminal class. Now, what do you do if you can't mimic the tax stamp, but you want to pass them off as legitimate smokes? You can often, here's a couple other shots, just steal them. And Michigan has a history of brazen thefts, including major hijackings of semi-tractor trailers. The two photos on the left were taken from this year, February of 2021. The one in the upper right-hand corner, or upper left, my upper left-hand corner, involves a service delivery vehicle being robbed. He pulled up with legal cigarettes, all properly stamped, was about to sell them to a legitimate buyer or deliver them to a legitimate buyer, and he had them stolen from the back of his vehicle while he was in the process of doing so. The other one involved a smash and grab out of Bay City. There's a lot of that. You can Google it on YouTube and find case after case study. We are incentivizing, unfortunately, brazen thefts and other activity that harm Michigan citizens, not only in terms of their property, but perhaps you risk individuals, especially in the past. There you saw more violence against people and police who were almost run over in one particular case right here in Michigan. The other photo there is I put up there is from 2018, I believe, where broad daylight, a thief just went into the stock room and stole $2,000 worth of cigarettes, properly stamped, put it in a garbage bag, and stole this property. The list goes on. My favorite brazen theft was out of Port Huron years ago, where two thieves walked in, took a recliner off the shelf, cut it out of his box, took the empty box to the tobacco aisle, filled it up, and actually bought their recliner and walked out of the store with the help of a clerk. So we can incentivize these brazen thefts that hurt people, property, and even lead to public corruption if we're not careful. It's something we need to pay attention to at the state and federal level as well. I have a dedicated website to all the cigarette smuggling information we have online at the Mackinac Center. It's mackinac.org/smokes. You can find a map of the country, highlight your particular state if you're interested, and it'll give you the smuggling rate there, where we rank, how many cents per pack our tax is the tax rate, smuggled packs, and the possible revenue lost absent smuggling. There's my contact information. John, you're back online, so I see it's my time to bow out.
Thank you, Michael, very much.